Hello, everybody. Welcome to Zone Defense. We talk all things NBA and NFL. Be sure to follow us on Spotify at Zone Defense Podcast and on Twitter at Zone Defense Pod. I also want to say thank you to all of our new subscribers that we've gotten across the last few weeks. And if you haven't yet subscribed already, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below because it really helps out our channel a lot. Also, drop a comment and let us know what the biggest surprise of the first round of the NBA playoffs was. Today, Chris and I will be previewing the second round of the NBA playoffs. How's it going, Chris?
It's going good, Drew. Obviously the first round was really fun to watch. There was a lot of really good series in there, mixed with some bad ones as well. But a lot of, few surprising teams make it to the second round, in my opinion. A few not so surprising. So I'm very excited to, look forward. We'll talk about the old series a little bit. That probably more focused on the teams that actually got it done than the teams that took the L. But I really want to keep our focus on these previewing these really good series that we're going to see, because I think we're going to see a lot of close series out of these four for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can just jump right into it too. We'll start out west with the Jazz and the Clippers game, which game one will be. We're recording this on Monday night, so game one will be tomorrow night, Tuesday. Jazz Clippers. Jazz. The Grizzlies gave them a scare there in game one. Everybody was like, "Uh-oh, we're going to see an 8 upset of 1 seed," and then the Jazz kind of took control there and won 4 straight. And very similar circumstance for the Clippers there, even though the Mavericks were able to force them to 7, which was very different than your and I's analysis. If you remember, we were kind of like, Mavericks suck. They're not going to put up any fight, and they looked like they should have won that series. Really, they were up 3-2, and then the Clippers won the final 2 games there. Kawhi really took over, so they were able to hang on and move on, which is really huge for them too. Because I think if they would have lost that series, I think Kawhi, no doubt about it, would have been gone. But now they're in round 2. They're facing a Jazz team. And I'm interested to hear what you think about this, but I think I'm picking the Clippers to win this series. I think I might be picking the Clippers to make the finals.
Wow.
I don't know. I just feel like that grit. I think they needed to get over that hump. They obviously had all the memes that were out last year when they blew the 3-1 lead to Denver.
Yep.
And then all the memes that were then created also when they were down 2-0 to Dallas at home. So I feel like they needed to get emotionally, mentally over that, and I think they could beat the Jazz here. I know the Jazz are a really good team, especially with Donovan Mitchell now back and healthy. Mike Conley does have a little bit of a banged up hamstring, so we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I think this is going to be a really, really fun series. I think it might go the distance as well. And I think I'm leaning towards the Clippers, but what do you think?
See, I have a different opinion than you. This, to me, looks like a carbon copy of the Clippers' run last season into the same round where they lost to, I believe, the higher seed or whatever. I'm pretty sure, but last year, they went down 2-0 quick to the Mavericks. This year did the same thing, fought back, were able to win in 7. Last year it was 6, but still reminded me a lot of the same. It was almost a carbon copy of the same series. Just it took them one more game. But I see Utah winning this series in 7. I think they're going to win it in the tight series. I think the Clippers did not look good in this series. I know Kawhi played really well, but the rest of that team was pretty mediocre. And I think with the Jazz depth, I think they're going to be able to do a lot of different things on the offensive side of the ball, as well as their pretty solid defense with Rudy Gobert down low. The way the Clippers will win this series, if they need to attack Rudy Gobert in the pick and roll. I know this guy is a very good defender, but if you can get him into some pick and roll switches and stuff, that's where this Clippers team can take advantage of some of their undersized bigs against him. But at the same time, on the other end, I don't really know who's stopping Rudy Gobert. I think they're going to really struggle to find that guy. Zubac ain't, dude. He's going to cram all over him all day, and he's their biggest center they got. So to me, I think the Jazz have a lot more mismatches, but if the Clippers do what I think they should do, I think they could definitely still win this series for sure. This is a good team. To me, they don't deserve to be in this round, though. I think Dallas outplayed them in the series, as well as them doing that cute tanking job, so they didn't have to run into the Lakers until all the way in the conference finals. I think they don't deserve to move on past this round. It would just almost be a nice parody from last season for them to get eliminated yet again in the second round to a team that maybe a lot of people think isn't as good as them.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement for the most part. I think it's going to be a long series. It's going to be a tough series. The Clippers, I mean, I wanted them to lose that series just because, like you said, they did the tanking job that actually kind of worked because the Lakers got eliminated by the Suns. and now they won't have to face them at all, which is kind of weak in my opinion. But yeah,
Exactly.
it's gonna be a long series. The Rudy Gobert point that you brought up too is really really great. If Serge is able to get a little bit healthier and play more, I feel like that could potentially be the answer for Gobert. But yeah, he can just dunk on Zubac all game long. I mean, it's like he could put up 45 points. Who knows? Just do that all the time. But the X factors are the X factors they've been for the Jazz with Bogdanovich, with Clarkson, with Conley, with Ingles. Yeah, I mean those are the guys that are going to step up. And Mitchell too. He's got to stay healthy. Got to still be that not full on superstar, but almost near a superstar. If the Jazz want to be a Clippers team, who they weren't great, but I feel like Ty Lue made the necessary adjustments down the stretch. Played Terrence Mann enough. Played Luke Kennard a little bit more down the stretch.
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson, actually, I mean, I know people were ripping him, but he kind of wasn't awful there those last two games.
I feel like
Paul
that's the
George,
nicest
though,
thing anyone's ever said about Reggie Jackson before. He kind of wasn't not awful. Got it, Drew.
he wasn't. He wasn't that bad. He was really good there. I think he had like 13 or 14 points in a quarter. I think that was game 6. I think it was. Like he wasn't awful. And Patrick Beverley, which I think was necessary, is not really playing that much anymore. So yeah, I think and Rondo's playing a little bit more. I think it's gonna be a really good series. I think the Clippers have the edge a little bit, just because they have Kawhi, and I think with the deficiencies though, with the size advantage that Jazz have, I think the Clippers will be able to find a way to kind of maneuver around that. And the Jazz, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hater. Even though I love Donovan Mitchell, I still don't fully believe in them, even though they really took care of a Grizzlies team that was playing some really, really good basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, man. I think the Jazz, part of that reason was trying to get Donovan Mitchell back acclimated to the series, and I still think they won pretty convincingly. I know John Morant played really well, but you're still trying to get Donovan Mitchell back. Mike Conley, like you said, battling some health concerns, but they won that series quickly. That means that Mike Conley's had more time to rest. It means Donovan Mitchell's had more time to rest, and they still got Jordan Clarkson, they still got Bogdanovich, they still got Gobert. They got some guys in this team that can score the ball. And I think the Clippers are going to struggle with that versatility that they have because they don't have a lot of people. I mean, I think Donovan Mitchell's a superstar, but a lot of people think this is, I mean, and they are a very balanced team that they can beat you in a lot of different ways. And they're also very good defensively as well. So I think with all that said, I made a bet going into the season that they'd make it to the Western Conference Finals. I did the same thing last year, but it was just a 1 year too early. And I'm going to stick with my guns on that. I think they are going to get to the Western Conference Finals, and we'll see what happens when they get there. But I think they'll win this tough, hard-fought series.
It's definitely possible. Definitely possible. Both have it going 7, so I think we're in agreement there. But it's definitely going to be a very, very fun series to watch. We'll hop in now to the next series. These two series, in my opinion, in the first round at least, were probably the two best series of the first round. Nuggets, Blazers, or maybe it's only second to only the Clippers, Mavericks, which is also a good series. But Nuggets, Blazers, Nuggets 1-6, despite Dame Lillard going off. Tremendous heroics there by him. But Jokic, Michael Porter Jr., and somehow I know we were dogging their backcourt there in our preview of the first round episode. Austin Rivers, Monte Morris were both really, really good there in those final two games. Because it was tied 2-2, and Denver was able to close it out. And then the Suns, Lakers. Again, the Lakers were up 2-1 in the series. Everybody was like, "Oh, the Lakers, it's going to be 4-1. That's over." And then the Suns won 3 straight. Yes, Anthony Davis' injury definitely played a role there, but especially in games 5 and game 6, LeBron and that whole team just kind of rolled over and died. I know they went on a run there second half of game 6 when their season was on the line, but really disappointing there if you're a Lakers fan. But the Suns played really, really well. Chris Paul's shoulder is still a really big concern if you're a Suns fan, but Devin Booker's coming out party for sure. 47 points there in game 6, the clinching game. DeAndre Ayton was really, really good, dominated. And it sets up this series with the Nuggets and the Suns. It's going to be really, really fun. The Nuggets, man, it really sucks for them, I think. If they had Jamal Murray, I think they could be like a finals, maybe even a championship contender the way this thing's really shaken out. But without Jamal, they still got the MVP in Jokic, who I think is really kind of starting to shut up some of those haters. And I think they're going to be a really, really, really good team here. That backcourt, though, is still very concerning. And in Phoenix, they have DeAndre Ayton, who I think will be able to kind of equal out at least a little bit of what the Joker can do. They got Bridges, they got Crowder, who locked down LeBron. I think they can do enough. Cam Johnson, too. I think they can do enough to limit what Michael Porter Jr. can do. And then definitely Chris Paul and Devin Booker, even if Chris Paul is 50% or 60%, that's better obviously than Monte Morris, Austin Rivers, Furkan Campazzo, whatever his name is. So in my opinion, if Chris Paul's hurt, it's going to be tough. But I think the Suns are going to win this series. They have home court advantage. I'm saying, man, I want to say Suns in 6, and I'm going to say Suns in 6. But I'm going to hear what's your take, because it could
And
go 7 too, and it won't surprise me.
Suns and 6 is also my take, but I'll get into
Okay.
how I'm going to talk about the Suns first. I'm going to get into the one way where I see Denver potentially winning this series, and I think there's one way they can do it, and it's very similar to how they beat Portland. But I'll talk about the Suns first. I just don't know how you don't like this watching this team. I'm not saying you do. I'm just like, this is a
I
team
love
that
this team. I
I like
love this
every
team.
single player that they play. They don't play any absolute losers in this lineup, but their
Yeah.
starting lineup they're fun to watch. They got their Chris Paul led team, so they obviously play really good defense. Devin Booker was awesome in game 6, especially, but throughout the entire series, he played really well. I thought Mikal Bridges was
Yeah.
instrumental in his switching defense. I thought he did a really good job. He's a very versatile defender and an extremely unselfish player, a guy that may be one of the best teammates in the league, in my opinion. I really enjoy him. And then Jay Crowder struggled early on in the series, but in that game 6, man, he was splashing, and then he really gave him some. He gave him some mojo early in that game to go on that big run. And then obviously DeAndre Ayton, very solid, very, very solid series against the Lakers, following off of what was, maybe not statistically wise, a crazy season from him, but I thought he really took a step forward in his development because he's really grown in the defensive end of the ball, learned how to play defense like a legitimate starting center in the NBA.
Yeah.
So, and then they also got, they got Campaign off the bench, which, I mean, this is a guy that there's NBA teams that, I mean, it was the Bulls, I think it was. They said they saw him play in a shoot around thing for 5 minutes and knew he wasn't an NBA player. Well, it turns out he is an NBA player, and honestly, a pretty good one. He can hit some threes every once in a while. Uh, honestly, he's an underrated. I think he's an underrated pretty much everything he does. So a good guy to have off the bench. And now I'm going to get into the way the Nuggets could win this series, and they did this. It really struck the Blazers would have won this series had Nurkic not fouled out a bunch, which he did in almost every single game that they won. He fouled out. The Suns do not have a backup center. They don't. Dario Saric will give up 50 if he was their starting center. They would give
Kaminsky.
up. Honestly, I think Jokic might score 70 on those two. Like that, they aren't
Yeah.
touching him. Ayton can defend him. Similar to Nurkic, he's gonna get his, but he can, contain him enough to where it gives them an opportunity to win and let other people on the court beat them. But Saric, Kaminsky, these are guys that are below average NBA defenders, are undersized compared to Jokic, undersized compared to Ayton. I don't see any universe where they slow down Jokic at all. So if Ayton is getting into foul trouble, Denver's going to win this series. That's just how it's
Yeah.
going to go. But I
Yeah.
don't think Ayton is as foul prone as a guy like Nurkic is, who it feels like
Yeah.
just every time he's on the court, he gets like 3 offensive fouls within the first 2 minutes of the game. So that's more. I don't think Ayton's as prone, but maybe Jokic starts hunting for those fouls even a little harder to try to get him fouled out or get him in foul trouble to where they got to bring out these bums off the bench that aren't really going to be able to handle him personally. So that's how they win this series, running the ball, running the offense through Jokic. But I think it's kind of a long shot. If they had Jamal Murray, I may take the Nuggets in this series when they probably would have won in less games against Portland. But it is what it is, man. I think the Suns move on to the Western Conference Finals to play the Utah Jazz. So we have the same opinion there on that one. Suns in 6.
Yeah. Yeah. You brought up several great points there. I forgot about Campaign too. He's either like on or he's off. I mean, game 6, he wasn't that great, and that's why he didn't really play there in the second half that much, because he's super erratic, he's super electric, and if those crazy floaters are going in and those crazy threes are going in, he's awesome. But if they're not going in, it's tough. It's tough to watch. But he's a dog, man. He's talks a lot of smack. He of course got into that whole little fight thing with Caruso and Harrell, who I don't like either of those guys. So that was fun to watch too. So. But yeah, this series is going to be another great one, I think. And you were kind of talking me into a little bit, maybe Suns in 7, because that Jokic take right there was a really, really good point. If Aiton's hurt, or if he gets hurt, or if he is fouled out, I mean
They
it's a
have no
difference
answer
maker
for
there
him
for
then. If
Denver.
that's the
Yeah,
case,
they
I
have
don't
no
know.
answer.
Monty Williams is a great coach, but he can't stop Jokic. This is the
Yeah,
MVP of the league. They need Ayton at full strength. They need him not to foul out, and that's going to be a challenge for Ayton for sure. He's a young center. He's this is probably the toughest challenge he's had as an NBA player is dealing with Jokic is definitely going to be an extreme challenge for him. So I'm concerned, but I think that Ayton is up for the challenge. He was very good defensively. He had some time against AD in the series a little bit, trying to stretch it out to the 3-point line. So that's some pretty good experience for a guy like Jokic. But right now, this is a different animal. This is honestly, he's playing. He's been one of the best players in the NBA this year, and he's honestly only improved his game since the playoffs. He really torched the Blazers. Anytime Nurkic was off the floor and he was on the floor, I believe the Blazers had with their or they try to throw Cantor or Rodney Hollis Jefferson on him. I believe their offensive rating was above 170 when either one of those guys was on. When it was down to 110 with Nurkic on him. So I think similarly to that, if Ayton's on the floor, can contain him enough to where the Suns can win this series in 6. But if that becomes a problem with the foul issues or he gets hurt, like you said, Denver's going to win this series. I don't know how many games it'll be, but they'll win the series.
Yeah. And you could say the same thing for the Suns is like, well, who's going to contain Chris Paul if he's healthy enough, and who's going to contain Devin Booker? But we said the same thing last series for Portland, who's going to contain Dame and CJ, and Denver found a way to win in 6. So, I think that matchup there, Jokic and Ayton, is probably the key to see who wins this series. But yeah, we both got the same thing, Suns in 6, but it would not surprise me if the Nuggets are able to pull this one out. Now we'll hop over to the East. We got Sixers, Hawks. This series already started a couple days ago. Atlanta got up huge to start the game, and then Philadelphia kind of clawed their way back, but it was too little, too late. The Hawks were able to win to take a 1-0 lead. Starting with their first round series, though, the Sixers beat the Wizards in 5 games. Not too much to talk about in that series. It kind of went, I think, pretty much exactly how we thought it was going to go. Maybe minus the Embiid injury that happened. But we thought Russ and Beal would be able to steal the Wizards a game, and that's exactly what happened. The Sixers proved why they're one of the best teams. I think they were the best team in terms of record in the regular season. Knicks, Hawks, though, I think this was very, very surprising for me, at least. I know I had the Knicks. I don't know if you had the Knicks.
I
I don't
had the
remember
Knicks.
correctly.
I
think
think
I
I
had
had
the
Knicks
Knicks.
in 6
Yeah,
or
I think that's
7.
might have. Yeah, I think I might have had 6 too. I put zero respect on the Hawks,
Yep, me
and
either.
Trae Young really shut me up. This was really disappointing. I thought this series was going to be really good. And yeah, it was Madison Square Garden. That whole environment was fun to watch. But I mean, after the first 2 games, the Hawks just ran away with the series and took over. And Trae Young, I think, shut really both of us up too, because he's a really good player. I don't think I know I definitely don't give him enough respect. But hopping into this Sixers Hawks matchup here, I think the key to this series is can Embiid stay healthy? I know everyone's kind of up on the Hawks now because they obviously have a 1-0 series lead, but Sixers came back in that game, and they were probably the better team for the second half of that contest. So I still have the Sixers winning. I think my take on this isn't going to change, even though we know obviously what happened with the Hawks. With the Hawks winning game 1, I have the Sixers in 6. A little more respect for the Hawks there. I know we were kind of already. I think you and I both projected a sweep in the second round during our first round episode. But I put a little more respect on the Hawks. If they could push to 7, heck, they could even win the series because Trae Young's good, Bogdanovich is good, John Collins has been kind of non-existent. But maybe
And
if
then he
he could be a little bit
crammed at
better.
the end of that. He
Yeah, he did. He
crammed at
did
the end
cram
of
at the
game
end of that
1, though.
game. Capella's been a beast on the defensive end for the most part. He's been good. Like I said, Bogdanovich, Kevin Herter's hit some shots. They've been just a really surprising, solid team. I think this is the first playoff series Nate McMillan has won in a long time. So good for
Yeah.
him as their head coach. They're going to put up a heck of a fight here against the Sixers, but I think the Sixers have too much firepower. However, I do think the Sixers are going to lose to whoever wins that Bucks Nets series. In my opinion, I think
I think the
with
champion
Embiid's
comes from that other
injury,
series. So
yeah, I agree. I agree with that too, and we'll get into that in a second. But what's your take here on this Sixers Hawks series, and maybe even the first round series if you want to touch on those two?
yeah, you touched up on the first round series. I'm just going to talk about this one. Honestly, don't even really want to talk about the Sixers. You know what it is. It's Ben Simmons, it's Tobias Harris, it's Joel Embiid. If those 3 are on, they'll probably win the series. If not, that opens the door for Atlanta to win. Atlanta's the real wild card here because, we've seen them struggle this season for the first half, kind of around that 500 mark, and then things flipped a switch with the coaching change going to Nate McMillan. He's been awesome. They've been awesome since they got him. I think this series goes to 7 games. You know what?
Wow.
I'm saying Atlanta in 7. I'm
All
gonna
right.
put the respect on him. I mean, I thought Philly might be able to get out of the East, but I've been I've been totally convinced otherwise of what everything I've said about Trae Young over the last couple of years. This guy's overrated. He stinks. I've said stuff like that he's not that good. He only gets his empty numbers. It's not the case. It really isn't. I'll own up to it. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Trae Young. I mean, I still he's got to the point now where I love to hate him now. Like I still don't like
Yeah.
him,
He's a
but
great
it's not
villain.
for the same reasons. It's this man, this guy's a beast. I want him to lose really bad, but this guy's awesome. Like he's
Yeah.
playing extremely well, but I want this other team to beat them. That's what it's come down to now. Where before it was like, oh yeah, I don't think he's that good. People overrate him. He sucks. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I want to talk about the Hawks as a whole team. You know, obviously Trae Young is there, but they have the dogs in this fight to match up with the Sixers' big guys. I mean, you have
Yeah.
Clint Capella, similarly to what we were talking about with the Jokic Ayton matchup. Capella needs to stay out of foul trouble to try to limit anything Embiid's going to do. John Collins, obviously, like you said, had some moments in that series. I mean, I think he had a game where he didn't score a single point. Only played like 9 minutes
Yeah.
because he was in foul trouble all game. I think that's a fluke. I think Collins is going to be a little more involved here because I'm not really sure who's going to cover him on the Sixers. I think they're going to struggle to find a guy that matches up with John Collins' height because he's 6'9", 6'10". I mean, maybe you throw Ben Simmons on him, maybe you throw somebody else on him. I'm not really sure how that's going to work, but you also have to factor in for the Hawks, DeAndre Hunter. I think that's a big one. I think he was a big in their series against the Knicks, switching on to Randall a decent amount. I think he gave him some problems because he's a very good defender, and he brings a little bit of juice on the offensive end too. Similar to that, I think you can throw him on both Ben Simmons and Tobias Harris. So having him being able to switch off screens and stuff with Embiid and things like that, I think gives this Atlanta Hawks team a lot of versatility. And then obviously you have Bogdan Bogdanovic as well, who's been playing extremely well lately. Kevin Herter can shoot the three ball a little bit as well. I think they're going to win this series somehow. Some way, somehow, I think the Hawks will pull out the series, and I honestly kind of want to see it. I think it's been fun to watch them. Like I said, I'm rooting for them to lose, but also at the same time, in the back of my mind, I kind of like when they win. It's kind of tough because I did want that Knicks team to win, but with the Trae Young stuff, shushing the crowd, saying a bunch of different stuff when they were winning games, he backed up the smack talk. I thought
He
that
got
all was
spit
really
on. He got flipped off. All sorts of stuff happened.
so it started a nice rivalry there, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's flipped my mind on Trae Young a little bit. I'll own up to my bad takes on him being not a very good player or an overrated player at least. This guy's the real deal, and he's proven it in the playoffs. And I'm also a guy that really believes in playoff production being it influences my opinions on whether or not a player is like legit or overrated. Like a Kristaps Porzingis who absolutely bleeped the bed in the playoffs this year. I think he's extremely overrated because of that, and he's a guy that they clearly
Yeah.
can't count on. Whereas Trae Young, maybe he's had some of these struggles and they haven't made the playoffs yet, but his first time in the playoffs, he's been so dominant in every single game. So I have to give him that respect, or I would be considered a hypocrite in my opinion because I do value the playoffs a lot when I my player rankings and what I see about a player. I do factor that in a lot.
Yeah, and I agree with all those points. And I don't even think it's outlandish to say the Hawks can win in 7 because I think they absolutely can. Ben Simmons too wasn't great in that Wizard series. His free throw shooting is still horrendous. He's got to figure that out. But yeah, and if Embiid's hurt, I think the Hawks can win this series easily, relatively easily. Maybe that's disrespectful to the Sixers, but that's just what I believe. And even with Embiid healthy or at least playing, it's still going to be a really, really tight series. And again, credit to the Hawks, credit to Trae Young, credit to Nate McMillan for just having a really solid season and proving all the doubters wrong. I mean, they were like a borderline play-in team, and then Nate McMillan went over there and took it over, and they won a playoff series, which I don't think any of us were expecting that back in January and February. So good for the Hawks. But yeah, that'll be another much more of a fun series than I think I expected it this second round matchup being a couple weeks ago. So,
Yep, I agree.
but we'll close out the episode here with, as you said, and I completely agree. I think this is the NBA Finals here in the second round, and these are the two best teams. I think whoever wins this series, barring any injury, and we did see an injury there in Game 1 to James Harden, will win the championship, and that's between the Bucks and the Nets. Game two is tonight. I think it's starting here very soon on the night when we're
Right.
recording. So by the time you watch this, you'll know what happened in game two before we do. But game one, at least, was very disappointing. The Nets really kind of just dominated the Bucks. Um, it was close there. The Bucks were hanging. It was a really really fun first half. And then the Bucks were able to kind of hang around there in the third quarter. But then the second half of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, the Nets kind of took over, and the Bucks went on a run late, but it was a little too late. So that was disappointing. But really quick on the first round series, that Bucks Heat series was probably the most surprising thing I think I've seen in a very long time. I'm pretty sure you picked the Heat to win. I had the Bucks, but I had the Bucks in seven, and the Bucks swept them. I mean, they wiped the floor with the Heat. Jimmy Butler's got to be embarrassed. I mean, that was just incredible, incredible series, incredible performance by the Bucks. And then the Nets Celtics, not too much to add. I think we had the Nets in six. I think so. Next one in five, not too much to add there. But for my takes on the second round series, I man, I wish I hadn't seen game one, because if I hadn't seen game one, I would have had Bucks in. I honestly would have said Bucks in six. I think I'm still gonna go with the Bucks, but I'm gonna say Bucks in seven. But the Nets just look so good in game one, and I think that they could easily win this series. They may even be able to sweep them. Who knows? James Harden's
Wow.
injury is definitely a concern. I'm not saying they're going to sweep them, but it's definitely possible. Just based on how good they looked there in game one. Kevin Durant looked good. Um, Blake Griffin stepped over. Who I forgot who he. I think it was Giannis's little brother, which isn't great, and maybe that could add a little extra edge to this series. But the Nets just, like I said, they look so good. But aside from game one, they don't really have a great answer for Giannis, and that's ultimately why I think the Bucks are going to win this series in seven games. I mean, what are you going to do? Throw Blake? I mean, you could throw Durant. Now that they don't have Harden, it kind of frees up. They can maybe try and contain Kyrie and KD a little bit better here the rest of the series. I just feel like matchup wise, the Bucks have the matchups, even though the Nets obviously have the big three. But after that big three, it gets kind of sketchy a little bit. I know they have some guys there, like Landry Shamet, like Bruce Brown, like I already mentioned, Blake Griffin, that could be good. But I don't know. I personally think the matchups have the Bucks, but like I said, the Nets have the talent, especially if Harden can recover from his injury there. I think it was a hamstring, to easily win this series. But I have a slight edge to the Bucks, just because I think they have the ability to beat them, I guess, and they win the matchup battle.
I think I agree with you. I think that the Bucks are going to win this series in seven. And this is a point you didn't mention. There is a 0% chance that Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday combined to go 13 for
Yeah,
42 and 2 for 12 from the 3-point line again in another game
that
this
was the
series.
worst game I've seen Drew Holiday play. I mean,
And it's
usually
probably one of the
he's
worst games
super
I've seen Chris
consistent.
Middleton. Yeah.
Yeah,
Holiday, a
yeah,
very consistent player, 7 for 19 from the floor with, some 3 turnovers. Really not a great game for him. And Chris Middleton was 6 for 23 from the floor, didn't make a single 3-pointer after a very good opening round series for him. I expect him to come out very aggressive in game two.
me
I
too.
think he's going to go on I think he's going to have a big game. Chris Middleton in game two. Calling it right now. I think he drops 30 at least. I think he's going to have a very efficient 30-point game in this
That'd be
game, and they
awesome.
need him to. Um, but with that being said, obviously, if Harden is able to get back, I know he's not. He's been ruled out for game two already, which is going to be tough. So I think they even up the series in this second game. But I mean, I don't know. Like you said, I think the Nets, they don't have a lot of depth. I don't know exactly who they're going to even play in this playoff series. I mean, they got Mike James playing 30 minutes, and this is a guy that
Yeah,
I barely know who he is, man.
he's
I
not
mean,
he's not bad. He's not awful, but he's not a guy you want playing 30 minutes a game.
I don't want him in my starting lineup in the big one of the biggest games in the season for sure. That's just how it
Yeah,
is. And I really think that they're going to have to find some offense from somebody other than Kyrie and Kevin Durant. And obviously, the leading candidate for that is going to be Joe Harris in every game. I think this is a guy he's an absolute
yeah,
sniper from the 3-point line. He provides some problems when they're trying to switch and stuff because if you give him any space, he's knocking down the open three. I mean, that's just what it is. But without James Harden running the show, I'm worried that they don't have a true point guard right now to set up this offense and get those shooters like Joe Harris open and Blake Griffin on those dives to the rim. So I think the Bucks defense is going to cause a lot of havoc. And then, like I said, I don't think Holiday and Middleton are going to have that bad a game. And if they're playing like that, and Giannis is even, he was awesome in game one. I mean, 16 for 24 from the floor is really good. But if he's even 80% of that, I mean, with those two playing at a higher level, I think they're going to be a problem for this Nets team, and that's why I got them in 7. I think Bucks win this series in 7, despite Brooklyn taking Game 1.
Yeah, I think you brought up a really good point there with Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. Is like everything that could have went right for the Nets in Game 1, aside from the Harden injury, obviously went right for them. They were making their shots, they were playing defense. Giannis looked kind of out of control there in stretches. Everything that could have went right for them went right, and everything that could have went wrong for the Bucks, like you mentioned with Holiday, with Middleton, with Giannis, Brooke Lopez was mad because he wasn't getting the right foul calls. It all went wrong for the Bucks. So. I think things get a little bit more back on track here in Game 2 for Milwaukee, and I think it was also. I mean, they were off for a while because they swept the Heat so quickly and so easily, and maybe there was a little bit of like, oh, we're the Bucks. Maybe they were kind of a little too high on their horse there because they took care of the Heat so badly, and all the memes and everybody was going at them for so long, and then the Bucks went in there and just really dominated them. Maybe they needed to be humbled a little bit, and maybe that's what Game 1 was for, but. I think I mentioned it on the first episode, the first round episode we did, where I feel like if the Nets had just one of their 3 guys go down with an injury, which we've seen all season long, they've gone down with injuries at different points. I really feel like the Bucks could relatively easily win this series, and I think I'm standing by that take, even though I do have them going in 7, because I do think Harden will eventually come back, even though he's not going to be playing tonight in Game 2.
Yeah, I mean, there's some very good points there, Drew. They do need all 3 of them to, if they're going to win the finals, they're going to need all 3 guys, and especially James Harden he's running the show out there. So, and like you said before, I believe the winner of this series will take down the winner of Philly and Atlanta, and then probably take down the winner of whoever wins the Western Conference Finals matchup. But do you have your finals prediction? We don't need the conference finals because we kind of already talked about what do we think about the series. Who do you think is going to be your NBA finals, and then who's going to win?
Well, I'm going to say my conference finals because I got to remember what I said. So I think I said
Yeah,
Clippers, Suns, and then I
yeah.
have Sixers, Bucks. So I have the Bucks being the Sixers. You know what? I'm going to take back what I said to start the episode. I'll have Suns being the Clippers. So I'll have Suns, Bucks in my final, which I think is actually what I had to start when I made like the bracket on NBA.com. I think I had Suns, Bucks, and I had the Bucks being the Suns in the finals. I think the Bucks will get it done and win a championship and shut up all the haters. And Giannis can raise the Larry O'Brien trophy.
See, I would love to disagree with you, but I agree. Bucks, Suns in the finals, and to make it interesting, even though I do think the Bucks will probably win, I'll say Suns win the series just to make it a little more fun, I guess. And they could do it. They could definitely do it. I mean, this team played at a high level against the defending champs last year. Why can't I know they didn't have AD for the whole series, but why they also don't have fully healthy Chris Paul either. So why can't they win it all if they can beat the defending champs? So that's my opinion on that. They got a shot. That's all I know.
The only problem I'll have with a Bucks Sun series is like you said with the Hawks, how it's nice to have a good villain in there. Is that I love both the Bucks and the Suns. So having them go head to head, I'd want them somehow to both win the championship. I don't know if that's allowed, but I guess in a weird way, it'd be more fun for me as a fan to watch if it's like Suns versus like the Nets, a team I really hate, or even the Clippers versus the Bucks, at one team that I really hate. Both my luck, it'll probably be Clippers, Nets, 2 teams that I really hate. So that'll be fun for me. But yeah, I think we were kind of in agreement here throughout the bracket. And I think for the most part, we did pretty well for our first round picks. I think the only one I got wrong, I think, was the Knicks losing. And I think
I
you
definitely
had,
got them wrong.
yeah, I guess you had the Heat, the Knicks, and
Yeah,
the Blazers, right? I think everything else you
and the
got right. It's
Lakers.
not that bad.
I think I had the
Oh, you had the
Lakers
Lakers
too.
too. Okay, that's tough.
So
Um,
bad start for me, but that's all right.
yeah, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. Those were tight series for the most part. But yeah, anything else you want to add here before we wrap this one up?
No, just looking forward to the games tonight, as well as these what should be 4 really good series. I think all of these, honestly, I could see
Yeah,
either team winning any one of these series. So I think that makes it a lot more interesting than the first round, personally. And I think it's gonna be a wild
yeah.
ride. So stay tuned for our next episode, probably at the conclusion of these series, I'm assuming.
Yep, most likely. And yeah, I'm also in agreement with you. These series are all really fun. Um, even like the Sixers Hawks ones, which we kind of shit on a little bit in our first round episode, is an entertaining series now because the Hawks really showed up to the playoffs ready to play. So Yeah, always fun talking basketball with you, Chris.
Yep.
But that'll do it for this episode. Like as you just said before, we do have several different. We're trying to do these basketball episodes a little more frequently, I guess. After each round's over, we'll do next up. We'll do obviously a conference finals preview, and maybe if something crazy happens here, we'll do an emergency episode and talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But other than that, we also have plenty of NFL offseason content. We've been doing tier lists recently. Fantasy football rankings, fantasy mock drafts will be up soon, as well as some division previews for the 2021 season. We'll hopefully be starting those up in the next couple weeks. So be sure you subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and Twitter at Zone Defense Pod, and search us on Apple Podcasts so you don't miss any of that great content. Smash that like button and drop a comment down below. Let us know, again, what your biggest surprise at the first round of the NBA playoffs was, what you think about our takes, who we have winning the series. We'd love to read those comments and try and respond to them as quickly as we can. But once again, that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.